So climate change doesn't mean only more precipitation, higher temperatures, melting ice, rising sea levels. It could also mean a whole host of issues for Iowa farmers and farmers across the globe. We're going to talk about that with Jerry Hatfield today on this program. We're also going to talk with J. Michael McCoy about corporate radio.
Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito, online fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
On March 28th, Equal Justice After Hours is Iowa Legal Aid's annual fundraiser that helps provide access to justice for low-income Iowans. The event includes a reception and program at the Temple for the Performing Arts in Des Moines. It also includes remarks by Georgetown University law professor Peter Edelman and the induction of Robert Oberbelly into the Iowa Legal Aid Hall of Fame. Tickets start at $50 and sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Terry Bennett at tbennett@iowalaw.org. That's tbennett@iowalaw.org.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruitcake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Brother Trucker. That's right, folks. Andy Fleming's tune Downtown, kicking off the conversation here today on the Fallon Forum. Later in the program, J. Michael McCoy going to join us. And very soon, Jerry Hatfield is going to join us. We're going to talk with J. Michael McCoy about corporate radio. Jerry Hatfield and I will discuss the recent USDA report on climate change. But I got to weigh in one more lick on corporate welfare. Okay, this will hardly be the last time I weigh in on corporate welfare. All right, the Des Moines City Council last night had nothing but lavish praise to put on Principal's proposal for expanding its presence downtown. And I sat down with Frank County over a cup of coffee. Well, for me, that means tea. Yesterday, and we talked about it a bit too. And, I mean, we're going to talk more about this, but I cannot believe that there's not one voice saying, hey, maybe this is not the right thing to do. You know, maybe giving one chosen corporate interest a big reduction in their property tax bill is not fair to the rest of the folks who got to pay their full tax bill. I guess I don't understand why that is not controversial. And again, 3 articles in the Des Moines Register on this subject, and not a single quote from anyone dissenting. And I know the dissent is out there. Gosh, just go to the Register's article and read all the comments that are critical of it from both sides of the political spectrum. So anyway, again, not the end of this. Principal, again, I have nothing against Principal. They are a good corporate, quote, citizen. And we'll talk more about corporate citizenship tomorrow and the next day on this program. But they do okay as far as big corporations go. They treat their people pretty well. And that's great. But they don't need a taxpayer handout. I really don't buy. I don't even see where they've said, give us this money or we leave Iowa. I haven't seen that. Maybe they've got that in their back pocket. But again, I had a really hard time seeing the kind of footprint that Principal has laid out in downtown Des Moines, abandoned for greener pastures somewhere else. I have a real hard time seeing that happen. We will keep track of this. We will talk more about it. We will particularly be interested to see what the state of Iowa does, because it sounds like Debbie Durham with the Iowa Department of Economic Development is just drooling to get Principal a bunch of money from the state. We'll see about that. I also noticed, by the way, that somebody with Principal just signed up for my emails today, one of their media relations people. So thank you. Welcome to the show. That was good to have you join us. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick on this same subject is in Ames, folks. Again, certainly corporate welfare is not only in Des Moines. Again, it does tend to happen in the bigger cities more than the small towns. Small towns, you should pay attention to that. But brought to my attention today that a company named Web Filings, one I'm not familiar with, received $3 million in direct assistance from the state recently through programs like the Iowa Values Fund and something that I'm not even familiar with called the Demonstration Fund, and also received tax credits totaling $2.5 million. That's $5.5 million right there. Again, I'm having a hard time seeing why that makes sense. And I got an email from somebody who pointed out that she's familiar with a business in Ames that made similar investments, similar improvements, and did it all on its own dime. Didn't go with its hat out to the state or anyone else asking for money. So again, we're going to talk more about this, but this is a huge policy issue that we have to be thinking about because it really is getting out of hand. And again, being taken to a new level recently in southeast Iowa with the Egyptian fertilizer company getting $251 million in public dollars to locate there. Okay, so switching gears, climate change. Okay, last year was the warmest on record across the globe by a big margin, by a factor of, I believe, 1 degree Celsius, or it might have been 1 degree Fahrenheit. Either way, 1 degree is a lot of temp when you're talking climate. And the USDA, to their credit, has put together a report looking at how likely climate change impacts are going to affect agriculture. And delighted to have in the studio with me today Jerry Hatfield from Iowa State University, the author of this report. Now, when I first contacted Jerry, I figured he was in some little think tank hole in Washington, D.C., and so I thought he was just going to be calling into our program, but lo and behold, drives down from Ames, and here he is in our studio. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ed.
And talk right into that microphone.
Okay, will do.
All right. So, so the report, again, how long have you been working on this?
We've been working on this report for about 2 years.
Okay.
And actually, it's a continuation of an effort. And it's a continuation of an effort because we actually build these climate assessments on a periodic basis. And these climate assessments are really geared to say, what's the impact of climate change on various sectors? And I happen to be in charge of the agricultural sectors, along with 56 other people that contributed expertise on this report.
Nationwide?
Nationwide, representing USDA employees, university employees, just a number of different people that were involved, because we really, in agriculture, it's not just a simple little problem.
Right.
It's not a simple problem of saying, well, does it affect corn? Does it affect soybeans? There's 300 different commodities that we have across the United States. The climate all has an impact on, and that's just crops. And then we've got livestock, which a lot of people forget. We've got specialty crops like lettuce, broccoli, raspberries, perennial crops like apples, cherries, oranges. All of these things are impacted by climate. And then the other interesting piece that flies under the radar screen is that there's a whole set of indirect impacts. Climate actually affects bugs, diseases, weeds, fungus, all of those other things that have an impact on agriculture.
Well, and wet and warmer. Wet and warmer is what we are. I know we've had drought here in Iowa, but it's very probable that we're going to see wet and warmer. That's good for weeds. Weeds love wet and warm.
Weeds love wet and warm. Insects love wet and warm. Diseases love wet and warm even better. And so we're going to see in the next few years, and I think the interesting piece of this is that everybody's kind of shocked at what happened in 2012. You know, we were dry and we were hot. One of the things that's going to occur in our climate as we go into the next few years is extreme variability.
And that's consistent with the models that experts have been talking about for a long time, for decades.
Oh yeah,
they've been talking about this movement between wet and dry, but with an overall more wet.
Right, and
wetter.
Wetter.
Let me speak English properly here for a change.
Well, it is, and that's an interesting piece because we have shown a slight increase in becoming wetter. But I think for agriculture, one of those interesting pieces, in addition to being slightly wetter, has been two things that happens in precipitation is that we're seeing a change in the seasonality. And so we're seeing more spring precipitation than we are summer precipitation.
Right, which is a real problem for the kind of livestock, the kind of crop agriculture we've been doing here in Iowa.
Because we're basically dependent upon summer rainfall.
Yeah.
The other thing that's occurring in this whole climate signal as well is that our storms are becoming more intense and less frequent. So it means that in addition to being a little wetter, when it does rain, it rains very, very hard.
And it runs off.
And it runs off. And so one of the pieces that we put in this report that really is very critical, in my opinion, is that we in the Midwest really have to pay much more attention to the management of our soil resources. How do we protect them against runoff? How do we increase their water storage capacity so that we can capture that water in the spring and make it available to that crop during the summer?
We're talking about an entire restructuring of agriculture, aren't we?
We're talking about a restructuring, a major tweaking of agriculture and our whole philosophy about agriculture. Corn and soybeans really are built around a system of utilizing water in August and September to produce the grain.
So do we need to be thinking about switching from corn and soybeans to mangoes and avocados?
Mangoes and avocados probably aren't going to suit themselves well to Iowa.
I've heard some people say, if you want to plant a tree here in Iowa today, plant one that grows well in Arkansas.
Right. I mean
that's not far-fetched.
That's not far-fetched. In fact, I'll give you an interesting story of what's changed already. And that's that we've seen a major change in corn and soybean production in the North Dakota and South Dakota because it has become a little warmer in those two states, and the precipitation has increased a little bit. So we've seen a shift in production in kind of to the Northwest.
Right.
And we will probably see shifts in production of our commodities around the whole United States just because of subtle changes in climate.
Well, it seems like to me the one constant response that we ought to be thinking about, regardless of, and again, it's such an intricate web between just the whole interface between crops and livestock, but then between all of that and the natural world, the fungal, bacterial world, the insect world, the animal world. I mean, we could have more critters eating more of our crops as well. But it seems like the one constant is the more we can do to be flexible, to be agile, if you will, agriculturally agile, the more we can do to kind of focus production on local markets too, the better.
Yeah, if you really start thinking about this, we in the climate thing, we're going to see all sorts of increasing variation in production,
right?
And we'll see increasing, and with increasing variation, you see increasing profitability or decreasing profitability, depends on which side of the equation you're on. one of the things that we'll see is how do we really structure our agricultural enterprise to fit more closely with the climate that we have. I mean, Iowa's not going to be a good spot to grow lettuce.
Iowa.
Right.
Well, it will be in February and March.
If we think,
I mean, really, probably.
Well,
I'm already getting a good crop in March.
I
am using coal frames.
Using coal frames, I think those are things we got to do. I think there's an advantage of locally grown produce, and I think we have to look at what that climate resource is and our crop commodity that goes with that, and then the market aspects, because producers want to produce something that they can have a market and produce something.
Folks, we're talking with Jerry Hatfield. He's from Iowa State University. He's with he's associated with the USDA. Is that the right description?
Well, actually, I'm with USDA and associated with Iowa State University.
I had it backwards. First time I've ever had something backwards in my life, folks. All right, Jerry Hatfield, and we're talking climate change, specifically the USDA report that you were the lead author of it. So honored to have you in our studio, and that's got to be a big piece of work, and it's an important piece of work, and I hope everyone is paying attention. So, again, I think about this from 2 points of view. One, the professional farmer, the person who is in production, and I use production agriculture in the broadest sense. Oftentimes, when you hear somebody say production agriculture, they mean producing hogs, cattle, wheat, corn or soybeans. To me, meaning you're producing something significant that is allowing you to make a living doing it. And then there's the rest of us who are trying to grow our own gardens, raise our own chickens, doing small-scale stuff. And I think, the home gardener is probably more easily able to adapt quickly than the person who is involved with production agriculture. And probably the bigger you get, the harder that transition is going to be to make. And so it seems to me we should be working on those options as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and to have as many options as possible, because we really don't know which way a lot of this is going to land.
And you raise a good point, Ed. And when we talk about production agriculture, and you say in the biggest sense, one of the critical things that we talk about in this report is a big section on adaptation. How do we really adapt agriculture to a changing climate out there? And we have to look at it and really look at it in 2 stages. One is, what's the capability of the natural resource base to support agriculture? The soils, the water availability. We already talked about the changing precipitation patterns, and if it was going to be dry during summer. Our soils have got to be in a condition to be able to absorb these high rainfall events without running off, which means
you've got to have collection ponds.
Or collection ponds, but then in collection ponds you've got to pump it back to the field. So this becomes one part of that puzzle. The other piece is to think about how do we manage crops given the changing climate and the water and soil resources that we have, so that we have a profitable level of production. And in actuality, gardeners and home producers understand this even better than anybody else.
No, it's true. I had a really good year last year in the drought. Worked really well for me. I mean, I had to work at the watering part.
You had to work at the watering part. And we had producers across the state and across the Midwest who had excellent yields last year. And we had other farmers, other producers who had very poor yields. Yeah. And part of that is direct relationship to the condition of their soil resource.
Right. Folks, if you'd like to join the conversation, if you are listening live, it's 244-0077 or toll-free 855-244-0077. And you can email me too at fallonforum@gmail.com. We're talking with Jerry Hatfield here with the USDA about climate change and the recent report on climate change's effects on agriculture. Okay, so is this something we need to be considering legislative action on? I mean, obviously, we're hoping that the federal government is paying attention. This is a federal report. But here in Iowa, are there things that the legislature should be considering?
That's an interesting question, because if you take a look at climate and what has been its impact on agriculture, one of the things that we've done is that from a policy viewpoint, there's been a major expansion of crop insurance programs to as a safety net for producers. I think the other piece that we need to be thinking about in agriculture is making sure that our producers understand just how complex this system is, and that don't be afraid to try some new things at times. I mean, do we need to look at crops beyond corn and soybeans, and look at small grain crops that would grow very early in the season and be mature by July? We're working on a project now with canolas as an oilseed crop, because they would be spring planted and would be mature early, and they could be highly profitable. So I think we need to start looking at some adaptation strategies. I think it's better to let the innovation go and see where we're at rather than legislate some of these processes.
Fair enough. And I think, so far I suspect that people on various points of the spectrum in terms of how we feel about agriculture probably in agreement with the conversation. But let me throw something in there that might generate more dissension. Genetically modified organisms, GMO crops, are often indicated as crops that are going to be able to adapt to changing climatic conditions. And yet there are plenty of folks on the other side who feel that just the opposite is needed. That again, the GMO crops have their own level of unpredictability, their own issues, demands, and risks. And we ought to be looking at more traditional, conventional approaches to agriculture. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a complex question.
I specialize in those.
Well, that's good, because you raise a very good question I think we need to address. And that is that we cannot overcome this problem purely by changing a hybrid, changing a cultivar. And we've gotten into this trap, in my opinion, that genetics will take care of all the other things that are going to happen. They'll solve our weather problems.
Can you say that and still keep your job at USDA?
I certainly hope so.
Okay.
No, it's you look at part of this, and what we work on is basically a genetic by environment by management interaction. And the reason we've split it out that way is that I feel that there's a role for genetics, understanding both what GMO crops do and what some of our traditional crops do. That traditional genetics, how do those fit into that equation? How do they respond to the types of stresses that are out there? How do they respond to the environment that we put them in? And how do they respond to the management that we put them under? Because what we've seen in some of our own field scale research is that I can have producers with the same genetics and the same environment, but they get different yields, which is a reflection of how well they've managed that crop. And so I think there's a great deal to be learned in this. I think that we're going to have to look at some very complex interactions to understand how crops fit into their environment, more than just saying, well, genetics will solve all of our problems.
Well, I mean, that to me is a significant observation, because there are those who see a GMO solution to every problem, and there are those who, like me, see some kind of unidentifiable demon in every GMO innovation. So I think that kind of more broad approach is a change that I welcome. We do have a question here from a viewer for you, Jerry. Mike asks, are we moving from climate denial to simple acceptance that all we need to do is adjust some strategies? There are infinitely more complex factors at play which we humans will not be able to control. There's a lot on that question comment too. It's half comment, half question. I think the question part is, again, are we moving from denial, which is where a lot of people have been,
right?
And I think our government has been in denial, to acceptance, and maybe, I mean, do you see if we cross that threshold where we're finally saying, okay, yeah, things are happening, and we're going to have to do something about it?
Well, and that is an interesting observation, because if we look at this, I mean, all you got to do is look back 100 years, and climate's varied all over the place. We've had warm years, we've had dry years. I mean, look at the 30s during the drought years. Everybody compared 2012 to 1988 in terms of a dry year. We've had these things periodically occur. And so what we're moving into is a period in which I think our climate or weather within a growing season is going to be much more variable. Right. And you look at all this, and I think that the one piece of the puzzle that I think confuses people is that we'll see people say, well, climate change is man-made.
Right.
Well, I think humans are contribute to that signal, but the climate is a very big engine of energy around the world, and we have all these cycles that go on. I mean, you've got the North Atlantic Oscillation Index, and you got the El Nino. All of these things influence our climate, but is our human activity in terms of how we manage the globe and what we do with a number of things exaggerating that signal? Yeah. And I think that's the question that has to be sorted out.
Well, let me ask. I mean, it seems implied in the USDA's report that, humanity is exacerbating climate change. Well, and again, no doubt there are cycles and factors that happen regardless of whether we inhabit this planet or not. But I think USDA is agreeing by just the existence of this report that, human beings have been involved with this dramatic shift.
Oh yeah, I mean you look at this, and I mean there's a report that just came out the last couple of days that talks about the irrigation in California influencing the climate in states in the southwestern U.S. There's even thoughts of, if you look at Kansas and it's how much we irrigate in western Kansas, how much that might be influencing the general climate patterns across the rest of the U.S. And so I think those are things that become very difficult to sort out. But in reality, we live in a changing climate, and I think we have to cope with that.
Right. Well, let's take one call late in the program here. This is from Bernie Gerstein. Bernie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
What's on your mind?
Well, we've got a problem with excess CO2. Hello?
Hello, we're here. I'm here.
We're burning fossil fuels, and
I'm not sure what that beeping noise is, Bernie, but we can hear you just fine.
It's hotter and hotter and hotter until we all disappear.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, and I think I'm encouraged that the USDA has put together this report. I think it reflects back on what the fellow who wrote, Michael, was saying, that we've moved from climate denial to at least acceptance of the problem. That's encouraging to me.
Well, yeah, but the people that are controlling what we use for energy are not doing very much about it.
Well, it will be interesting to see what the president does in his second term, and it'll also be interesting to see what the Iowa State Legislature does. Senator Hogue has talked very ambitiously about seeing climate change initiatives move forward this year at the Iowa State House, so we'll see what happens with that.
Well, we produce a lot of our electricity from wind in Iowa.
Yes.
About a quarter of our electricity. There's no reason we can't produce it.
Yep.
No reason we can't produce all of it.
Right.
And then in the excess, use the excess power to produce hydrogen from water.
And you're a retired chemistry professor from Iowa State University, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, Bernie, I've got to run to a break. I thank you for taking the time to call us.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Jerry, for joining us.
Not a problem. Thank you.
I do appreciate it. And, folks, if you want to learn more about the report that Jerry has authored, what do you do? Where do folks go?
You can. There's just Google climate change impacts on agriculture, and I think that pops up on the first web link out of the whole report. So,
all right, great. Well, thank you. Folks, I want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring this program. I want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. I got to have not one but two meals at Gateway Market yesterday. First was with a legislator and her assistant, and second was with a doctor friend of mine and a couple others. And my doctor friend was impressed that there was so much vegan food available. He's eating vegan and loving it, and Gateway Market was very satisfactory on that account. It was also satisfactory to me, the guy who had chicken marsala and a couple nice helpings of mashed potatoes and carrots on the side. So, again, check them out, folks, Gateway Market and Cafe. Again, not just a cafe, of course, but a fantastic grocery store as well. Keep your money local. Check out Gateway Market and Cafe at 20th and Woodland. And I will be back in a minute with J. Michael McCoy talking with us about radio.
Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
Since 1994, Sid's Catering has graced Des Moines area events with quality service and rave reviews. Owner Sid Cohn's culinary career began with a Northeast Iowa vacation home for international clientele. Sid earned a Bachelor of Science in Hotel Restaurant Management and was the assistant clubhouse manager at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Sid has a passion for fresh, local products and offers a wide range of options, including vegan, gluten-free, and ethnic. Mention the Fallon Forum when you book your breakfast or lunch event and get 10% off. Contact Sid's Catering at 208-2091. That's Sid's Catering at 208-2091.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Folks, we're going back to our conversation here on the Fallon Forum. Thanks for sticking around for the second part of the show here. And I want to thank J. Michael McCoy for joining me. Mac owns the studio, and I rent the space from him. He treats me pretty well. He doesn't make me bring him on my show. But every once in a while I think, that would be a good conversation. And I as I think about corporate radio and the way that a couple big companies have come to dominate almost all of commercial broadcast, I can't think of a better person to talk about that with than Mac. So, Mac, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ed, for having me on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So, again, there was a couple places to start here. I want to talk about the article in City View recently. I also want to talk about an interesting article I saw the other day. Maybe you didn't notice this one. It's titled "Fugitive Hunt Uses Social Media." I'm always getting people who say, "Well, you're not a real journalist," or "Well, that's not really a talk show," or they ask, "How's your radio show doing?" And I say, "Well, this is very different. I mean, yeah, there's a radio interface going on here, but a lot of the opportunity to engage with this type of programming is through one's computer, through online, with a video element as well as an audio element." And I think a lot of people have not ramped up to understand how drastically things are changing. And again, on so many levels, my thought, commercial radio, I'm going to call it a lost cause at this point. I mean, tell me if you think I'm going too far, being too hard on it, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you and I know it, commercial radio is gone. Your companies now have multiple announcers that live in different parts of the country who go into a computer and find out what the next song is going to be played and what the last song, and they know exactly what time it is. And they can make themselves sound live. They can use bumpers that has them adding the name of the city, so you, the listener, just thinks it's one statement. Here's Beyonce on your Hot Z station in Des Moines, and the in Des Moines comes in locally.
So that's all they say locally is in Des Moines?
Yeah, or in Iowa, or on
Do they need
KKDM.
a college education for that job, or what?
No, they don't. There's no interface with the local communities like we had it. Now, I have some really good friends who didn't like that article in City View very much. Well, some of them were with Saga. And Saga, which is the Des Moines radio group, really does still maintain.
Yes, this is true.
Fairly a full staff.
And nationally, they're a very, very small player. I mean, the big players now: Clear Channel, Cumulus.
Right,
and you've got I don't know how much the market Saga has, but it's not much.
Well, in this market, Saga's number 2.
That's true. Well, they're ahead of Cumulus still.
No, yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Are you talking about ratings and dollars? I'm talking about dollars.
I was thinking of number of stations as well, but yeah.
Oh yeah. But you know, it's like everything else in this world we've watched. Everything is affected by technology. First, it was our manufacturing was affected by technology, and so fewer people are allowed and needed. And now it's come to radio and television suffering the same thing. Right. It is so easy to get access programming like we produce here at Webcast One Live that you can get rid of your live local announcers and just insert, tab A into slot B.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to know exactly where it's going to go, but it looks. I feel more comfortable predicting where this goes than where climate change goes.
Yeah.
I mean. The big unknown factor to me is what happens with what we call net neutrality, with the possibility that some corporations that want to have more control over the internet will find ways of structuring it so that you've got to pay more for the current access that everybody gets equally. That could be a real problem for if that happens.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll ever happen because what you're speaking of is really what did happen in cable television. Cable has become that.
Right.
I don't know if you're a cable subscriber.
Frank, I know I'm not.
Okay. I'm a full cable subscriber. I have multiple televisions with multiple DVRs, and I have the fast internet thing.
Right.
My cable bill is $230 a month.
Really?
And that just, I want to put a cork in my head. Say, are you kidding me? You're spending almost $10 a day. But the fact of the matter is, I use my internet and I use my TV, and that's my form of entertainment, and my wife uses hers, and the kids have theirs. And so one of the things that I think is going to happen is if terrestrial radio has a future, and I don't know if it does at all, it's going to be going back to private, probably mostly not-for-profits. So the United Way will buy 940 AM, and they will constantly broadcast things that are about the United Way, which kind of takes you back to the original of old-time radio.
Well, and which is what, for example, the city of Des Moines does with Channel 7 on TV.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you'll see a lot of these go not-for-profit, and they will advertise their specific events. You may see somebody like Wells Fargo go on there, and they will produce 24/7 financial programs.
See, I mean, to me, the tension is there. As long as people are driving a lot, and they are, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Although I think we may have peaked in terms of the amount of miles we drive as a nation. But again, it's still going to be a lot of time in the car, and that's where people listen to a lot of their radio.
Right.
But the thing we're doing here on Webcast One, and the thing other folks are doing with online options, more and more of that is going to be available in your car as well.
Yeah, as soon as Motorola or whoever it is manufactures that $179 radio that's installed into your dashboard, that when you push button 1, it is something you've pre-programmed to be a www dot,
right, or
an app. The apps become part of the phone or the receiver in your car. Terrestrial radio is done.
Yeah,
it's done.
So I mean, the airwaves still exist because this is a physical feature of the it's reality. There are waves out there. So if they aren't being used in the way we currently use them, what is when you say terrestrial radio is done? The waves are going to be there. What happens to those waves? Who uses them in what way? Other than the example you gave of a nonprofit, but that certainly wouldn't be the entire usage.
I think it would be not-for-profits. I think it'd be churches.
Okay.
I could see.
That's it. Not commercial at all. No commercial interests. No.
I'm sure somebody will stay commercial. I think a WHO with a 50,000 watt stick like they've got, they would probably stay commercial. They would probably become primarily agriculture related, so they could just suck in that niche and nobody could touch it. But for the most part, and maybe it's guys like you and I that go back in and buy those radio stations. But the question is, why would you?
Yeah, that's my question.
If you can now get internet delivered in your car for $200 a month, and maybe there's a fee. We talk about fees. Maybe there's a $29.99 a month fee. Whatever that is, why would terrestrial radio be important anymore. It would be a boat anchor.
Well, and I think that the one thing we can do that is unique, again, I know the WHO does offer some local programming, but it's all of one political perspective.
Correct.
And I think even people who may not agree with me like the fact that folks who don't have a chance to be in that forum, can have their voices heard on this one. I mean, I have 5 folks who did listen to me when I was on WOW, who still keep track of me and read me the Riot Act on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I know that audience is interested in local, even more so than they are, I think, in the hard right conversations you get almost exclusively on Clear Channel.
Yeah, well, when I started Webcast One Live 4.5 years ago, I started it because I wanted to build a studio to do my own show.
Right.
And then I had friends like you and Mike Libby and some other folks say, hey, can I do a show too? And in the beginning, you wouldn't have had a Maddie. You would have been sitting here with a computer and your little cameras would have come out of your laptop. And that's how we did the shows. And we've progressed.
World.
Yeah.
Wayne's World-like.
Yeah, we've progressed to a full TV studio, having a producer, and this is the wave of the future. Now, that can be questioned by many, I'm sure, but I'd like to have that debate with those that don't understand that.
And what you said, too, about radio becoming more and more owned and operated by nonprofits, focusing on the issues that they want to focus on. I mean, that's happening with a lot of the low-powered signals.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got again the new station in Ames that this show is being broadcast on,
yeah.
KHOI. That's a community-owned station.
Finally, the FCC has got back and started to expand the airwaves for community-based, not-for-profit radio stations. That's the way this started. Radio stations were mostly owned by bankers.
Right.
And the bankers would put a little studio in the back of their bank, and they'd let their customers come in and talk about their businesses on the radio. That's how it all started. So if you were a member of, if you were a customer of John Ruan's bank, what was that called back in those days?
Bankers Trust.
Bankers still is Bankers Trust. As a customer, I'd be able to come on and talk about my radio station or my car dealership or whatever it was that I had. That's what we're going to go back to. And I salute those folks in Ames that are doing this project.
Yeah. Well, and we have, and I see more and more of that happening around the state too. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes. But of course, there's a nice interface here as well. Some of your programming in the studio here is also picked up on radio stations.
Right.
And again, that's the case with the Fallon Forum as well.
Yeah. As I sit here and talk about the future of radio, I have to be transparent. On the other hand, I've got somebody who's working very hard to get not only my program, but other programs syndicated nationwide on terrestrial radio. But I think it's the end of that line. Maybe I won't see that conversion in my lifetime. I don't know. I'm old enough. I hate being. I don't mind being old. I just hate being the oldest guy in the room now, which I am a lot of times.
Well, yeah, you got me beat.
I can tell you stories about how Dick Youngs and Ed Wodka and A.W. Pantoja and I used to sit around KIOA and laugh at the fact they were going to try to turn this FM in to a rock station. 93.3, KGGO, K-Life, Q102. These were all beautiful music or religious stations. And then somewhere in the mid-'70s, somebody said, maybe we could get people to listen to FM. What was the biggest problem, Ed? There was no FM in the car.
Yeah.
Go back to the days when you and I started driving, we just had AM radios. So when they started adding FM radios to the cars, look what happened to AM and how FM grew.
Right, sure.
The same will happen with internet.
Yeah. Folks, if you'd like to join the conversation, we're talking about radio, its evolution, and the current corporate domination by about really 2 big companies of the commercial airwaves. You're welcome to join the talk here at 244-0077, 244-0077. J. Michael McCoy and myself discussing that. Again, if you're listening to the show on KHOI 89.1 FM in Ames, it's a rebroadcast from a show done live Tuesday, February, what is the date? February 12th. There
12th,
we go.
Yeah.
So I saw an interesting article recently, Mac, and let me ask you about this. Again, a lot of folks, they're stuck in the idea that you're not credible unless you're on radio. I sent out an email a while back, several months ago, in which I referenced my work as a journalist, and I got a scathing response from the head of a very, very large organization with Democratic ties here in Iowa that just blasted me for my arrogance, referring to myself, the audacity to refer to myself as a journalist. And I'm thinking, okay, what's different about what I do, which is really what I do is the equivalent in the newspaper of an opinion page.
Sure.
You know, where I try to reach out and have a variety of viewpoints. I certainly have my own opinions, but it's a visual and audio version of an opinion page in the newspaper.
Right.
I don't see why people can't get that. But again, I think it's such a big shift that folks haven't got up to speed on it yet.
Well, I would tell you that whoever that was, and don't tell me who it was, so I won't make it personal, but they're ignorant on what a journalist is. A journalist is not about delivery. A journalist is about searching the truth out and then writing about it or speaking about it or broadcasting it. So I wouldn't take that too personally. That person doesn't understand journalism.
Well, and they also don't like me, by the way.
Well, of course.
So it was just another reason
Small-minded
to take a shot
people,
at me. But,
take shots at people.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is there's nothing. I mean, a lot of folks right now who can't get their voices heard elsewhere are able to do that here on my show, on yours, on Bradshaw's, on Dan's show. And here's to those who think that this method, this medium is not viable, not functional, not as good as radio or anything else. Check this out. The title of the article is "Fugitive Hunt Uses Social Media." This is from yesterday's newspaper. Metro's Most Wanted list. That's which included a short television segment that informed residents of fugitives on the run. And maybe you're familiar with this.
Yes.
Okay. It's been off the air for about 3 months. Officials are working on finalizing some deal with some new sponsor. Who knows what that involves? But despite the lull in the television program, local law enforcement continues to use social media prominently in their efforts to apprehend criminals. So Metro's Most Wanted has been off the chosen venue of TV onto social media, and this is really a form of social media. And I like the quote from Des Moines Police Sergeant Vince Valdez. Quote, "It's always been a good resource for law enforcement," he says, referring to social media.
Sure.
So he says, quote, "It's a good way to get information out." So, maybe this one is not, this forum, and I'm speaking broadly about social media, and I consider this part of social media. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a different characterization.
No, I agree with
you would put on it. But to me, it's not where you first go. I mean, I remember when, I remember having a guy with an organization from Chicago on my program on WOW. And this is even though I was on the radio, when he went to buy time for his issues on radio, he only thought WHO. He dropped thousands of bucks on WHO at a radio station that wouldn't give him the time of day to come on and talk about his issues, his concerns about immigration. But I think this is even a more dramatic change. We have to get out of the box of thinking about how how we talk about what we believe is important, how we promote what we do, how we engage in dialogue. So let me take a call, Mac, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it's the long lost son of Elvis Presley himself, Frank from Des Moines. Welcome to the show. Frank, how are you?
Hi, good. Otherwise known as Prince Vader.
Prince Vader, yes. How are you, Prince Vader?
Hey, I assume Mac would agree with this. Ed seems to go off on some tangents sometimes. That all the ills in the world are due to corporate power, corporate structure. I don't necessarily see corporations as the bad guy in this. Probably a necessary evil. What do you think?
Well, Mitt Romney had it right. Corporations are people.
Ouch.
And there are bad people and there are good people. And when they form together to the power of a corporation, those multiple people, and you have to remember that the laws that their buddies, the lawyers in Congress, get to write about them. I tend to agree with Ed with the fact that I think there are unjust laws out there that favor corporations to do things to individual people that probably shouldn't be done. But I don't see corporations as bad. I see people as bad.
Yeah, I think big is the problem, in my opinion. I think you need an approach to the economy that has a regulatory framework, minimal ideally, but one that prevents huge monopolies from forming. And we did the opposite in this country. With radio, between Reagan and Clinton, we allowed a couple corporations to take it all over.
Yeah, Reagan. As much as I liked Ronald Reagan, he ruined radio. When I got into radio, you could own 1 AM and 1 FM in a town, and you could only own 7 towns.
Didn't that happen under Clinton? Wasn't Reagan's contribution was the so-called fairness doctrine?
Yeah.
Well, when a kid can hold a device in his hand half the size of a transistor radio and can hold literally up to maybe 10,000 songs on one device, it just tells you. And a cell phone, a Android or whatever cell phone that you literally got any newspaper you want, punching www. You can watch you can watch some television things, you can watch whatever on a telephone. So Mac covered it well that when they start putting WWE in your car, it's over.
Yeah, it is absolutely over.
And will that be a sad day for you, Frank?
Well, as someone who grew up listening to Minnesota Twins, radio, Halsey Hall, Herb Carneal, I don't know if any of you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm. I remember the Minnesota Twins.
But, but I used to listen to Drake, Bulldogs, Iowa Hawkeyes, Iowa State basketball games on WHO radio. I've listened to California Angels broadcasts from radio stations, Timbuktu, Cracklin. I can remember in the 70s traveling, to Detroit and listening to WHO radio as far as you could possibly go, and like Mac was mentioning, the introduction of FM radio. I mean, but kids nowadays don't have the patience. All this is geared at people my age. I'm 55. All this is geared at people my age because young people, 25, don't have the patience of snot to sit down and listen to anything.
Well, the fact...
I'm not sure that's fair, but...
Well, I mean, as far as talk radio. They want their information instantaneously. Boom, 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 I want to know the story, and I want to go on with my life. They don't necessarily want to sit down and listen to something for an hour or 2 hours or 3.
Well, Frank, I would tell you, and don't take offense to this, Ed, but liberals won't sit down and listen to long-form talk radio. Conservatives do all day long. And the proof of that is there is not one liberal media outlet that is talk radio.
Well, and that's because the corporations that own the big stations have all... Frank, hang on. They don't want that message. That message is not friendly to their existence. They don't want that message.
Their message sucks.
No, I'm talking about... No. Then hang up, Frank. If you don't like my message, hang up. You don't have to listen to it.
Is for the most part... People, even liberals, don't want to listen to the liberal message. Liberals listen to the conservative message because they like to argue with it.
Frank, there are 16 programs in this venue here at the studio, and mine is among those that are growing. Correct, Mac?
Absolutely.
Mac crunches the numbers, and
you're ahead of me.
Well,
but you're a liberal with a little bit of sanity.
Yeah, you really are.
Well, okay, all right. Well, let me say I don't consider myself a liberal. I make a distinction as Richard Doak did. I think this is important. Liberal to me is someone who favors a government solution. I think there are times when government solutions are needed, but to me, a progressive populist is one who embraces an approach to government that sees it in its proper place. Yes, it has opportunities to do to fill in where we can't make change individually, but the progressive populist politician needs to be there to guard against both corporate influence and meddling by government that gets too big.
But
that's my take.
You're not fiscally insane like some of your comrades.
No, and I right now I can't. I could use a few comrades when it comes to criticizing corporate welfare. That's been going crazy in the state right now and in the city of Des Moines. Mac, do you have any feelings on corporate welfare?
Define corporate welfare.
Money from the taxpayers to one specific business.
Like what Principal's doing right now with $268 million?
Yeah.
It is the game we play. Money is the game. It saddens me that Principal, who is such a foundation in our community, would shake the souls of this community and say, maybe we don't need to be downtown.
I'd say call their bluff. I mean, how is Principal going to pull up all of its investment here in Des Moines and move anywhere else? They would have to have an incredible incentive package to make that work.
Yeah.
I say, call their bluff on that.
Well, it is. I heard the city manager make the comment that the upgrades in the facilities will eventually raise the tax base and will actually make money on the tax breaks we're going to give them.
Well, Frank, thanks so much for joining us. Mac, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show here.
You're welcome.
And be
Glad
happy
to have you here.
Be happy to return the favor someday. But we've got a lot more coming up later this week, folks. Stick around for Bradshaw, of course. Just looking ahead, Thursday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to talk about the State of the Union address. That's happening tonight, obviously. Adam Mason with Iowa CCI will join us for an update on campaign finance legislation. We'll talk with Mary Beth Gardam about the move to amend issue. And, of course, I've got this new feature with Nakisha Phillips, an update on her pregnancy as she works with a doula and a midwife. And on Friday, Dr. Charles Goldman and I, who usually agree, are going to get into it over the question of media violence. And we'll also talk with Deb Bunka and with Heather Ryan for Ryan's Rants. I want to thank Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring this segment of our show. Community CPA is at 3816 Ingersoll Ave. Give them a shout for your accounting needs. 288-3188. 288-3188. And again, don't wait too late because, folks, as you get closer and closer to tax day, you do not want to be just sitting around waiting at the last minute. It's not a good idea. I also want to thank Story County Vet for sponsoring this segment of the show. Story County Veterinary Clinic is on Highway 30, just east of Ames, run by Dr. Kim Holding, who has 30 years in the business. Give them a shout for all your critter needs. That's Kim Holding with Story County Vet. Thanks, folks. I'll be back tomorrow.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative mmanager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great.